Just wanted to remind all the libertarian, anarchist, anarcho-capitalist, hyphenated isms out there that taxation is actually voluntary. I don't know if you've heard of this concept. Some of you might have heard of the fact that taxation is theft. Well, I question this fact because I think flipping this around and looking at it from a different angle, under the angle of taking responsibility, maybe like an extreme responsibility or whatever, the standpoint of taking 100% responsibility, 100% ownership for your life, then taxation is actually voluntary. And I say that because just like in the extreme ownership, like if somebody cuts you off in traffic, there's this counter argument, right? Well, what are you supposed to take ownership for somebody hitting your dog? I mean, there's even like a meme going around, like your dog gets hit by a car. Oh, well, you should take 100%. Yeah, well, the thing we're looking at here is the way that you're looking at it. So yeah, you're not responsible for what somebody else does necessarily. Maybe you shouldn't have been in that situation. Maybe your dog shouldn't have been in a situation where they could get hit by a car. Maybe it's not responsible of me to leave a fence up here where my dogs could potentially jump over it, like Mosley here, who can jump really high. But it is my responsibility, however, on how I react and respond to the situation as it arises or before it happens, and so on, in preparation for it, contemplating certain scenarios. So, well, if you're driving down the road and they pull you over, you're telling me, Tyler, that that's voluntary? What happens from there if they give me a speeding ticket and I should pay it? Yeah, so, again, yes, because you put yourself in that situation knowing that there's a mob that rules, that pretends to rule anyway. This region that you're living in or whatever, right? So you knew that getting into the scenario. So that's why it's voluntary. So taxation is voluntary in that sense, because this is the libertarian cry, right? Or the anarchist non-aggression principle extrapolated out to what is perceived as something that's involuntary in your life. Something I call the mob, right? The edict is, well, we want all our relationships to be voluntary, right? And the state's interactions with us are not voluntary. Well, yeah, in one way, but in another way, no, not in the way that I just mentioned. That you're responsible for your actions, and okay, in the world and the reality we live in, there's this aggressor out there. The aggressor, the psychopath of the state. This philosophy that statists hold, that the government has certain rights or somehow is able to carry out things on the people that the average citizen, the average person wouldn't have the quote-unquote right to do. This is all, again, not my philosophy. This is sort of the libertarian, anarchist philosophy, right? Well, that's the way that it is. There isn't really a thing where things don't aggress on other things. And that's the baseline assumption. Things do aggress on other things in this reality. It's not really a principle that they don't. And the universe in itself is a very aggressive place. And you have to use your intellect and reasoning and ability to respond, your responsibility to interact with the place around you. So yeah, there's a mob, there's a cartel who has a monopoly on violence, and they're operating out there. And if you didn't want to interact with them, you could come up with a better system using your mind, using your creative abilities to skirt your way around that. And nowadays, even more so than any other time, that's true with the tools that we have available. So if you're nervous to do that, or if you're like, well, there could be consequences for that, there could be consequences for me avoiding these things that I'm calling theft, that I'm claiming should be voluntary. If I go against it, there could be consequences. So you're operating in a way that's already pragmatic against the state, and you're already probably have a driver's license or some form of way, paying sales tax on groceries, paying property tax, whatever it is, that you're acquiescing anyway. So you're already a pragmatist in that way. So call it what it really is. It's being, if you're acquiescing and you're saying, well, I wish it was voluntary, but I'm still gonna, you know, get the piece of plastic in my pocket so they leave me alone, or get the passport so I can go to Anarchist or whatever, right? It's always interested me how all those people fly internationally without any official passport or documentation. I'm sure they all have it, which means at some level they're willing to acquiesce. So just call it what it is. We haven't figured it out yet. You can't figure it out. You don't have a better system. Maybe we're still building them. And it's really cowardice. It's not voluntarism. It's being a coward, masked in this virtue flag of sort of this feminine aspect of it should all be voluntary. Well, sounds great on paper, but when you break it down, it is already voluntary. Hence the title of this little rant here, Taxation is Voluntary, right? Which is meant to challenge the premise, because if our premises are incorrect, maybe a lot of our grammar has not been correct, and maybe a lot of the rhetoric that we're putting out is incorrect, right? And I can say we here because I used to make this mistake. And then I realized it was bullshit. And then I corrected it, which is what you're supposed to do. So, not that challenging or hard, but it is if you're in a cult and you don't want to hear this. And you go, taxation is theft, man. Voluntarism, I'm a voluntarist. No, it's a lot of it is based in bullshit. A lot of the premises are nonsense. Plenty of contradictions throughout. The reason why I take the time to expose it, I think it's a well worth it endeavor to talk to the people in my quote-unquote community, which is maybe the next topic of this series, walking and talking around on a Friday evening, that, you know, community is kind of bullshit too. All the weed needs that need community, that want to build community, it's just people. It's just individuals. There's already a community there, and you're probably not even apt enough or able to interact with it to the level that you're claiming that you want to. So you'll hear this in the voluntarist rhetoric as well, which is all, like I said, it's passive rhetoric to make it seem like you're on the right side ethically and morally, but it's not even correct logically speaking, running it through the logical processor, right? It is voluntary. You have free will. No one can take away your free will. The way you interact with the things that are going on is up to you. So even if someone was, they'll always use the example of someone, well, what if they're holding a gun to your head? It's still up to you how you're going to respond to that situation, right? So in the end, even in that situation, you can decide to resist. Maybe you'll lose your life, but in some cases, maybe that's a so be it thing. But if we're not willing to do that, what do we call that? It's called being a coward. So that's what it is. It's not actually the fact that things are going to be some idealistic way of someday being all voluntary and everything's going to be all somehow peaceful and everyone's going to be perfect. There's always going to be that power vacuum and that power structure that attempts to thwart people that are trying to just be free. So that appears to be the way that it is, using your, ability to perceive what's going on here in this reality. So just hoping and wishing someday that it won't be that way, and then claiming that that's your philosophy is shallow and needs to be revamped, needs to be revitalized into a better form of rhetoric, and stop talking about voluntarism. It's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. That's the point of this video, and I would actually like to hear some of the arguments back, which I'm sure I've already heard over and over, and because you just don't get it yet. You don't see the fallacious reasoning that you're doing. Even prominent figures within the freedom community, which is mainly full of fallacious nonsense and again, weak cowards that won't actually even do anything to make a difference in the world for freedom, and would rather complain about things the way they are and wish they were some other way, as in voluntarism. And I know that might ruffle some feathers, but it needs to be said. Alright, so we'll talk about this throughout the Falling into the Movement Trap series. You can go to my site, tylerbloyer.com, and check out the Falling into the Movement Traps series, which goes into a lot of the various pitfalls and traps that you can fall into when you're quote-unquote going down the awakening journey. And it's really just getting started. We have something else in the works. We're going to be talking about the Federal Reserve System. So one of the other arguments in the truth and freedom community is how the Federal Reserve is a private bank owned and controlled by private bankers. All this dust is why I'm having a hard time. Bring them on camera. Oh, okay. It's Facebook saying that. I was always confused like a boomer. Somebody's watching, bring them on camera, and I thought like somebody was commenting that. So I was like, what do you mean, bring them on camera? But it's just a notification saying you want to watch, bring the person on camera that's watching. That's funny. Just now realizing that. So the point isn't don't try to be free, don't resist tyranny, and don't believe in seeking truth. That's not my point. The point is, along the way, we have to use discernment, we have to break things down further, we have to continue the alchemical process of Negredo, right? Breaking things down. And it doesn't really stop, and if we can't see past some of these basic fallacies within the libertarian, even anarchist philosophy, or can't even discuss them, then again, that's more showing like a groupthink problem going on, not so much like it's not something worth seeking, because it is. You should question those things, right? But more or less that like that groupthink thing going on with anarchists and libertarians, which they're not exempt from, is pretty strong in those groups. So, again, in January, I plan to record Falling into the Movement Traps Part 2, Fallacies Within the Truth Movement, and that will be focused on the patriot mythology of the Federal Reserve. And I think what we'll do is basically just scratch the surface on questioning the general ideas around the Federal Reserve being a privately Rothschild and JP Morgan controlled bank. And what it is an independent organization of government. So it's kind of like the post office. Yeah, Congress doesn't control the daily moves of what happens at the Fed, but it is an independent organization of government. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm not trying to say that there aren't people behind the scenes or there's not shadowy, deep state, whatever, the dark occult operating behind the scenes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when we specifically talk about the technical details of how the Federal Reserve operates, when it's all just bullshit anyway. Like, these are all just man's law creations of men creating a artifice. It's all titles that aren't actually something that we should respect and honor. It's all made up anyway. But when the rhetoric is, oh, it's private, it's this, the Federal Reserve Act doesn't actually say, oh, private banks are the shareholders in the Federal Reserve. It just says there are shareholders. Yeah, the 12 banks, the banks within the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve banks are the shareholders. And it's not like owners' stock, like in the company where they have decision on like what the company does. It's like just the stock that they have to hold contractually as part of the agreement in the Federal Reserve Act. So it's a misinterpretation. G. Edward Griffin, Eustace Mullins, with the information that they had around that time, and the creature from Jekyll Island. Although I love G. Edward Griffin, and I've sat with him and interviewed him even at the Red Pill Expo in Mesquite 2017, 2018 in Mesquite, Nevada. And I think he's a good dude. I don't think he was correct in the creature from Jekyll Island, which is like the Bible of the quote-unquote like libertarian anarchist community. It's like the book that woke everyone up. Well, I hate to tell you, Congress passed the Federal Reserve. That's why it required an act of Congress to become the Federal Reserve, because it's an entity of the government. That's why you can't go and like find its like corporate documents and its corporate filing. And it's your interpretation of the Federal Reserve Act that's, I'm sorry, but it's a misinterpretation. So again, if we're going to go try to wake other people up to the truth, and we're not even factually accurate with our truth, right? Like maybe that was a slip of the tongue, but our truth in that sense, meaning it's kind of your truth. Like you're not really accurate there. It's not the truth. It's kind of like, we should audit the Federal Reserve. Well, have you ever heard of the CAFR? It's basically the audit of the Federal Reserve. There is a thing that they do, all the accounting that shows what happens with the Federal Reserve. So Ron Paul's whole thing was just like a red herring, basically, which is like what every libertarian nowadays will tell you was the thing that got them to be libertarian, right? The Ron Paul movement, the creature from Jekyll Island. Again, does that mean that you're on the wrong path? No. It just means you've been, I think, intentionally deceived. I think a lot of this stuff in the patriot mythology is put out there intentionally to deceive people. And so you kind of look foolish, touting rhetoric that in the end is provably false. And then the person questioning you looks like, well, why would I want to listen to anything else you have to say? Not saying that's like 100% gonna work and that people aren't quote unquote waking up, but again, taxation is voluntary, right? That's the slogan, because it's up to you to change that if you really wanted to change it. You'd have to change your behavior. You'd have to change the way that you operate with that system or in the world to get by without paying taxes, right? Why call it out, even if it were the case that taxation is theft, which I don't think it is. That's why I'm saying it's voluntary. So anyway, just trying to plant some seeds of aggravation in the people that have completely accepted these things as doctrine. And hopefully the other works I put out will help put that in context and the continued work that we plan to do. But anyway, a little wobbly here on the camera. I think I'll call it a night and finish a few more laps and come back with another video right back at ya. Oh yeah, hope you're ready. Alright guys, taxation is voluntary. Watch out for the t-shirts. Okay, bye. Oh, the boomer can't even figure out how to